thank you for having me here tonight. It's been a pleasure to accept the invitation from Collins after all this time. I worked on the 3rd, 4th and 5th editions of the dictionary way back, some 15 or 16 years ago already. I'd like to start telling you about a historical reference. Exactly 420 years ago, Sir Richard Percival published the Bibliotheca Hispanica in London, 1591, which was a grammar and a dictionary. The dictionary part of this publication was only 60 pages, but by those terms, in those terms and in those days, it was a big enough piece of work anyway. It was compiled, and this was the interesting feature about this dictionary, from live or real sources. Sir Richard Percival actually had the aid of some Spanish officers that were captured from the Armada disaster, who helped him to provide him with some of the matter that went into that dictionary, and in particular, the pronunciation guide that went along with it. So one of the groundbreaking features of this very early dictionary of Spanish and English, very early bilingual dictionary, is that it was conceived as everyone's dictionary. It was conceived to be used by traders, by travelers, by mariners, by soldiers, by people who in those days needed to use Spanish and English in their travels throughout Europe. It wasn't strictly academic, not by comparison to other works before this one and after, that were conceived primarily for use in universities, and which were works that hinged primarily on the study of Latin. It was Latin, the parameters that they used for comparing languages. It was a contrastive approach as well that he used between the two languages. And the most important fact, really, the most important thing about this dictionary, as I say, is that live sources were used as informants for that dictionary. This isn't going to be a lecture on Spanish lexicography in Britain. This is just a point I want to make to draw a parallel with my own experience in the late 80s, as I said. I was in Scotland. I worked as a teaching assistant at Glasgow University for a number of years, and then as a lecturer later on at the University of Stirling. I was in Scotland out of choice, would you believe? But also partly because I was avoiding our conscription, which at the time, was what we had to do. I was in sort of mid-20s at the time, and I had hair as well. I worked in those days as a freelance lexicographer for Collins roughly from about 1985 to 1992, working, as I said before, in the 3rd, 4th and 5th editions. And my main line of work consisted of basically three things, three major tasks that they gave me. One of them was deciding on new entries for the Spanish-English version of the dictionary. And this was a very challenging task. I was given screeds of dot matrix printer, piece of paper, basically, with lots of tags and lots of labels and things, and the entries highlighted in pen, yellow pen or something. And I had to go through them and decide which were worthy of inclusion in the edition of the dictionary. I'll come back to that in a minute. Another line of work, really, that was very interesting was also providing translations from the English, Spanish side of the dictionary. And this was also, proved a challenging task as well, because of the number of translations that had to be given. A lot of the work from the English side of the dictionary was coming then from other HarperCollins projects, such as the Co-Build dictionary. So a lot of the work was filtered through to the bilingual dictionaries in that manner. So this meant, again, more screeds of paper, more screeds of computer print actually, with lots of words that a translation had to be given for, because they had to go into the English dictionary. I wasn't obviously making decisions of which English words went into the English side. And also, although this was in parallel really and over a number of years as well, I also did some work on abridging dictionaries, because this is the large, what was called the large dictionary, the Collins Smith dictionary, the large one. It's now called the unabridged, I found out, which is fittingly so. But we abridged from different editions of the bilingual editions, the large, the concise, and so on, for smaller editions like the pocket dictionaries, the travel guides, and other products, other editorial products of that ilk. I'll come back then to the work that I did, particularly on working on new entries of the dictionary. There was a great sense of responsibility, as I said, because in those days, late 80s, early 90s, Spain had undergone a huge political change. So by the third edition, there were words that were coming into the dictionary. A lot of them very encyclopedic, if you like, very sort of laden with cultural content, such as aperturismo or estape. These were words that were coming out of the 80s, really. And on the other side of the equation, if you like, you have the bunker, or the people that, the old Franco ex-ministers that didn't want things to change at all. The 23F, with this, it has become a fashion now, really, in Spanish, to talk about important dates in terms of the number and the initial of the month. Therefore, the 23rd of February 1981 is etched in recent memory, and very recently they commemorated, or it wasn't quite a celebration, but it was the commemoration of the anniversary of 30 years since the coup d'etat, attempted coup d'etat, that night of the 23rd of February 1981. So 23F is a word that is in the dictionary and will remain so. Because that was one of the issues when we were deciding on which words, which expressions, which idioms were worthy of inclusion. And the criteria, the main criteria here was durability. How long do you think they're going to last? Are they going to be words that people are going to be using, say, in 10, 15, 20 years' time? Well, unless you have a crystal ball, that's very difficult to assess in some cases. But we did work. It was not solitary work at all, because apart from my opinions, my decisions, or my valuations on the words, there was a team of editors that went through all of that. We spent hours going through the work and asking why decisions were taken. Why do you think this is? And we took into account all sorts of different criteria for that, social, economic, political, and we arrived at conclusions that were left as part of the dictionary for that reason. Dictionaries are organic, obviously. If grammars are an attempt to map out language in a way, dictionaries are an attempt to give the depth of the language in terms of the volume of words and the volume of expressions that the language contains. And languages being living things as well, being organic, change all the time. For a dictionary to be staying in the top position after all these years, it has to be kept alive, and it has to change, it has to metamorphose, it has to ditch out perhaps words that went out of fashion and we didn't realize at the time, and take on new ones that technological changes and generally the development of the world at large is imposing on lexicographers as well.